All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Shannon Cilento. For those of you who I haven't worked with yet, I definitely see some familiar names and faces and some new ones, so thank you for being here. Um, I'm the Director of Community Development and Communications here at Sullivan 180. My master's degree and educational background is in urban planning, and I'm a certified municipal planner by the American Planning Association. I'm also a really active member of the APA's Urban Design and Preservation Division, so I'm really passionate about public space design and parks and trails and all of those great things. I've also been a member of planning boards. I was on the Village of Monticello planning board for I think about 4 years, and then I was on the Town of Thompson planning board for a couple of years as well. So, great experiences, and I give credit to everyone who serves on a planning board or ZBA. It's not easy work, but it can be rewarding. So like I said, this is what I'm passionate about. If you've applied to Sullivan 180 for any sort of grant related to building a park or public space before, then you've probably been the recipient of design feedback like, what about lighting or add benches? And those are the basic start of what we're going to be talking about tonight. But first, some housekeeping. So if you could make sure, and I think it looks like everybody is, I have a couple screens here, but it looks like everybody is. If you could make sure your Zoom name matches your first and last name so that we know for when we're sending the post attendance credit to the planning board and zoning board secretaries so you can get your credit. That would be really helpful. My colleague Carmela Ugel is also on the call. She waved. She is recording attendance for us, so thank you, Carmela. Carmela is also our beautification program manager. She's a great resource for you on anything related to trees, gardens, landscaping, site design. She's a great resource, so feel free to use either of us in the future. Um, Also, if you could keep yourself muted until we'll have questions at the end. But if you could just keep yourself muted so there's no background noise or sound interference. Tomorrow, I will also be sending out an email to everybody with a handout, as well as some other resources and links for further exploration. We're here if you want to chat about specific projects after as well, and my contact information will be on the last screen. So thank you all for being here tonight as planning and zoning board members, parks and recreation professionals. I think we have a couple municipal parks folks here. We have planning and zoning board members. We also have some elected municipal leaders and town and village board members. Hi, Frank. You all play a powerful role in shaping your community and our greater Sullivan County community's public realm, whether you realize it or not. So every site plan you review, every park you improve, subdivision you approve, variance you issue, that directly influences how people move through your community and how they feel in it. So each decision that you guys are making is determining whether residents linger, connect, feel welcome, or simply pass through and go about their day and don't have any connection to place at all. So that makes your work really essential to building a healthy, vibrant town or village. And tonight, we're going to talk about placemaking as a lens, not necessarily as like an extra step or burden, but as a way to look at projects, whether you're leading the project, say you're a park professional at a municipality and you want to create a park, you're on your town's comprehensive plan committee and you want to think about new parks, or you're on a planning or zoning board and you're looking at a site plan review. How can we implement those principles of placemaking as a way to look at projects with a lens of quality of life and community character in mind? So that's what we're going to be talking about, and we'll start moving forward. And I'm assuming the slides switched for everybody, so it's working. Okay, great. Thank you. So first, I do just want to introduce our organization for those that aren't familiar so that as we go on, you understand our lens and our priority of community health and why we invest in this work. We were founded by Sandra Gary as a local philanthropist. Her and her husband Alan, they own Bethel Woods, but they've also invested a lot into community beautification and health throughout the years. We're a grant making organization, so we offer grants to municipalities and nonprofits and schools. We joined forces with our sister organization, Sullivan Renaissance, in 2022. So you might have been familiar with the work of Renaissance or even worked on a Renaissance project. But at Sullivan 180, our focus is really community health. And we're not just talking about health in the sense of, we're not building hospitals, we're not doctors, but we're looking at health through the community side of things and something what we call the social determinants of health. So those aspects of physical environment and your community that influence your health. So it's not your genetics that we're looking at. We're not looking at those things. We're looking at, school lunches. We're looking at safe streets, and we're looking at access to food and, beautiful communities and safe places to walk in your community. So we're really looking at those environmental factors, and that's why we're investing in in this work as well. So our mission is that we are dedicated to building a healthy community through people, places, and policy with an intentional focus on prevention and empowering a healthier generation or youth. Um, I always like to point out too that our logo is the turtle. So you can see it in my background, but the Sullivan 180 logo features a turtle. Why, you might ask? We gathered the turtle from, first off, that this was the land of the Lenni Lenape people, and their totem was the turtle, but also the turtle's motif as something that suggests longevity, stability, slow and steady, the kind of change that we're trying to promote at Sullivan 180, getting community health rankings up. This does not happen overnight. Communities are not built overnight. Main streets are not improved overnight. These are things that take a lot of time. And so slow and steady, thoughtful planning can help make these things happen and at a good pace. So that's a little bit about us. And I encourage you beyond tonight to get involved with us, follow us, and learn more, because we do have a lot of other programs in addition to what we're chatting about tonight. So I've shown this graphic in presentations before, but I did just want to keep it here again as a little bit of context. The why we invest in public spaces and parks through our grant programs. But there are so many health benefits of access to parks and green spaces. Parks and public spaces really are centers of community health and vitality. Communities with great public spaces have better health outcomes than those without. That has been proven time and time again through many different organizations, lots of data. We have some really beautiful landscapes and natural resources and communities here in Sullivan County, as I'm sure you know. And so access to these parks and public spaces create a really healthy environment. They foster social interaction. They're places where people meet each other, where they interact with each other. They're places that offer some relaxation and some meditative qualities. Being in nature has, physiological impacts on the body. There's reduction in prevalence of chronic diseases, obesity, heart disease, et cetera. Those who are able to access parks, walk to the store, walk to school, with more active lifestyles, when we foster that, also have better health outcomes. And when improved maternal and fetal health as well, when you have a healthier mother, the babies are healthier as well. So we're giving them a head start at a healthier life. Mental health is also a huge piece of this. There are so many studies, and I won't go into them today, but we know that access to nature improves people's mental health. Being out in nature, there are both physiological and mental benefits to access to nature, grass, bird noises, all of those things create really strong responses in us as humans and improve our health. So now that we have that background, how do we apply these principles to the planning and zoning and municipal board context? These health outcomes that I just mentioned don't just apply to actual parks or town parks as you think of them. They also apply to commercial developments, shopping plazas, main streets, and other projects that might come before your board. And you can incorporate them into your town comp plan update. I know several municipalities are going to be looking at comprehensive plan updates. If you are on a planning or zoning board and you know that your town's comprehensive plan is outdated, please encourage your elected officials to visit it and update it, because this is really what influences zoning and your authority as a planning or zoning board member. If it's in the comp plan, then it gives you some teeth to be able to enforce it when you're looking at site plans or projects. So, some of the things that we're looking at when we talk about the health benefits of access to well-designed public and commercial spaces are that they encourage physical activity by making it easier and more inviting for people to walk, bike, and move in their community. So we are in a rural area, and for the most part, you need cars to get places. We're not going to, we have moved Sullivan as public transit, which is a great start, but we're not going to have a subway. We're not going to have a train system that we can hop on and go to the store or go to the doctors. That's just not the reality in Sullivan County. We are a car-centric county. However, when you park somewhere, you can, in the parking lot, there are ways to make it more walkable and encourage that physical activity for people to walk or bike or move around that place once they've gotten there with a car. Um, it supports mental well-being, again, access to nature, but also attractive streetscapes and places that feel safe and welcoming. When you're in a place that looks taken care of, looks cared for, you feel safer, you're going to want to walk. You're going to, you're not going to want to be in your car and lock your doors. You're going to feel safe walking on the street or walking through a place or riding your bike. It builds social connection by creating spaces where neighbors can naturally gather, interact with each other, form relationships. When you have a well-designed place, you encourage that neighbor activity, that conversation where people can learn from one another, or say hi, or it's that kind of coffee shop conversation or that water cooler conversation that you'll have. You can have that and create that in a parking lot. You can create that in a grocery store, etc. It strengthens local economies when you have, if you think of some of your favorite places to visit in the general Hudson Valley, I think of there's some great communities here. You think of Narrowsburg, you think of Calhoun, you think of Broadway and Monticello is really getting some great commercial activity. So when you have a really nice commercial area, people want to come there, they want to stay there, they want to walk around and spend money, which is a good thing for the local economy. Uh, Improve safety. We touched on this before, but when you think of safety, you have to think about lighting. You have to think about defined pedestrian routes, crosswalks, so that people can move through these places more efficiently and more safely. Um, it also fosters a sense of pride. There's this civic pride when your community is beautiful. When I talk to people from, I do some stuff out in Narrowsburg at the Chi Hive, and when I go to Narrowsburg, people love Narrowsburg. Um, it's a great little main street, but there's a pride and an ownership in that when you have a really strong sense of place in your community and in your main street, your commercial areas. It promotes accessibility when spaces are designed so that people of all abilities can get around them. Children, elderly, disabled, everyone can interact in a place. That is a good place. And it also increases community resilience by creating multi-use spaces that serve residents year-round. We have the beauty in Sullivan County of having four seasons, as evidenced by our snowstorm yesterday. We have winter, we can't avoid it. But when you design places in a particular way to allow for plows, allow for snow blowing, or those sorts of multi-season considerations that you need to have, those also serve your residents better. So I keep saying placemaking. What is placemaking? Placemaking is the process of creating quality places where people want to live, work, and play and learn. So it's exactly as it sounds. It's making great places. It is a global movement, so there are organizations all over the world dedicated to regional and city-based placemaking. But it's community led and it's people centered. So it's really thinking about the people that it serves, whether it's a park or a shopping center or a neighborhood, a subdivision. You really want to think about the people and the way that they use it. Um, Placemaking can be, in some of the photos you can see, placemaking can be a mural to create some sort of sense of local pride or, just add a pop of color. It can be saving in the middle picture is the Calhoun silos, the historic grain silos in Calhoun that were restored and are being stabilized and restored. That's a really important part of the historic fabric in Calhoun on Main Street. It could be creating a park that has nature-based elements with that children are able to use and incorporate that into it. So it's really being intentional about what you're installing in places, what you're doing, and what you're protecting. Public spaces are more than just places to sit or walk through. They are where community happens. It's the community centers, it's parks, it's shopping plazas, it's parking lots. And a great public space can help reduce social isolation. It can increase safety. It can improve quality of life. And that's why we're here. So I also want to mention too that we are a very rural community for the most part. Yes, we have our urban centers. We have our Route 42 Monticello corridor. We have I would consider Liberty, the Village of Liberty, maybe a little more urban as it relates to Sullivan County. But these don't have to be big, grand urban parks or public squares with huge amounts of activity and investment. You guys are already doing lots of placemaking work and you might not even realize it. It can be the Veterans Memorial that you maintain in your town or the sidewalk that you require a developer to include in their site plan so that pedestrians can get to and from and around that development. Um, it's all those sorts of things, and we just need to articulate it and frame it a little bit more effectively, and that's what we're gonna continue talking about. So I want to also nail home that it should be a tool and not a burden. I'm not trying to create lots more work for you. This is meant to be a review framework that you can incorporate into your conversations with developers or applicants that helps you articulate what you like or dislike about a place or a plan, suggestions to make it better. If you want to suggest a park to your, village mayor, your town supervisor, your parks and rec professional, you can help visualize what that place could be. When it comes to development, I think we all know those examples of like corporate box stores, not to name names, but you know who they are. They present you with the most standard version, which is their cheapest design. It could go anywhere in the country. You know it's not attractive, but it's so hard to articulate and put a finger on why. Yeah, it's just a cinder block box with a big yellow sign in front of it, and you could recognize it anywhere. That's what they bring to planning boards often because it's the cheapest, it's their base model really. But hopefully after today you have some new questions to ask that help you articulate and communicate with your applicant what you'd like to see changed and what you'd like for your community. The same goes for a new local small business owner. So there are suggestions you can make that aren't terribly cost prohibitive, but improve their design and hopefully make them even more attractive and thus more commercially successful and economically viable in the long run. So good public space design can reduce community conflict at meetings. If you're showing that you care about, the character of your community, what things look like, the public feedback, there's going to be an increased public trust in your ability as a board. It could improve project applications and help developers understand like this board expects you to come prepared with a really nice design. You're not going to just accept their basic, this is what we put in every community. You don't have to. You can work with that developer to come up with something a little bit more attractive that really feels Sullivan County to you. Um, And good design can also stimulate and increase tax base, higher property values, stronger commercial occupancy. Nobody likes to see vacant buildings, but as you continue to get more economic viability and places created, the more people are going to want to stay there, linger, spend their money, and then those properties, those vacant properties, are going to be really desirable for people to want to start businesses in them. Tourism retention, also really good. These are places people want to go. People are going to want to come from Orange County, Delaware County, Wayne County, Pennsylvania, and say, I'm going to go visit Monticello for the day. I'm going to go visit Narrowsburg for the day. These are types of communities that we want to create and retain. Um, and then lastly, before we move into the placemaking model, I just also want to say that board members, planning, zoning, et cetera, and municipal staff members, you are community stewards. You may just be here tonight to earn an hour of training credit, and that's okay too. But you don't serve on these volunteer boards because it makes you rich or because, it's super fun. You do it because you care about your community and its future. Um, you are a steward and you represent your neighbors during this process. And some of those things that you could be a steward of that placemaking can help you protect are rural character, scenic view sheds, historic resources, walkability, community identity, and heritage and history. Those are all things that I think most people would say are pretty important to them when they think about their community. And Sullivan County has such great assets here that we can think about critically while we're approving new developments or creating new places amongst all of these existing places. So the placemaking model is a little bit more, in general, this might be applicable to more new parks and public spaces versus site plan review. But I do think it's a really interesting way of thinking about places and starting to think about why we're building places or why we're approving places and who they're for. So I almost look at it like a menu, but it doesn't have to be one of each. It can be multiple, but it's important to articulate and define as part of the process. So when you're thinking about a place, you start with people's needs and identities, align them with the spaces that they inhabit, then you use targeted strategies to think about outcomes. That's really wordy. What does that actually mean in reality? So when you're thinking about, let's say we're creating a new park in whatever town, who are we designing it for? Is it the general public or can we get a little bit more narrow? We really want to make sure children are going to be welcome there. Or we want to make sure it's for teens because teens don't have a lot of places to go. Or people with disabilities, whatever the population might be. And then we think about the space. So are we looking at a street? Are we looking at a park, a campus, a neighborhood, a market, a plaza, etc.? Then we're thinking about the how. So is this something a developer is coming in for? Is this something the municipality is getting funding for? Are we engaging the public in this design process? And then the why. Are you doing this because you want a place for kids to play baseball or people to buy really, fresh, good food? Or are you doing it to increase tourism or boost economic growth? More places for people to spend money, climate resilience. Do you have a property in your town that on a river that constantly floods and you want to develop a really climate smart park that because you can't build anything there because of the flooding. So think about the why when you're doing that process. But also it's so really when you're thinking about whether it's building a park or approving a project, who is it being built for? Where is it? How is it happening? Is it going to come to fruition? And the why, because there's always a why. And if that why aligns, especially if you can get that why to align with your town's comprehensive plan with those goals in mind, then that's going to be something that's really beneficial and positive for the community. Now, we utilize this framework called the Place Game. It is a framework put out by the Project for Public Spaces. They're a national organization that does public space design. I will send this out in the email tomorrow so you have it. But this can apply to evaluating an existing park or public space, an existing shopping plaza, or commercial space, Main Street, etc. Or you can ask these questions when you're starting to think about a new development or new plan. So there are four main categories to keep in mind, and each has questions to help you really think critically about what a place needs. So we actually at Sullivan 180 use this year after year with our class of interns who are working in parks and public spaces across the county. We give them the place game. It's a checklist with questions and they evaluate places with it. Um, you can use this to evaluate, Hanafi Park in Liberty or ShopRite Plaza in Liberty. You can evaluate existing places with this framework again, or use it when you're looking at projects. So first, we start with access and linkages. We start first here because it's how people get to the place. So you can't evaluate the place until you get there. So some of the questions that you might ask when you're thinking about accesses and linkages are, can people easily walk to the place? Does it have sidewalks? Is there a crosswalk that gets them to where they need to go? Or are they going to have to dart between moving cars and play Frogger in the street to get across the street to where they need to go? Do roads and pathways through the space take people where they actually want to go? If you're developing a park and there's a beautiful gazebo that you're putting there, are you creating a path around and then nothing going towards the gazebo, or are you creating a pathway that brings you to the gazebo where you might want to go? Do sidewalks lead to and from adjacent areas? Are they intentionally placed? Does the sidewalk just end with nowhere else to go? Is there good connection between the space and the buildings, or is it surrounded by blank walls? Is there places to add murals or other things like that? Um, are occupants of adjacent buildings or adjacent properties using the space as well? Do people, linger on the street? Do they go shop at other places around them, etc.? So that's access and linkages. The next category is comfort and image. So at its core, is it safe, clean, and inviting? So does it make a good first impression? Does it look like a place you'd want to go? Are there enough places to sit? Comfort this is a really important part of comfort, is making sure there's places to sit. There's seats conveniently located so people have a choice of places to sit. If they're walking, if there's a massive parking lot and someone has to park really far away and they need to take a minute to sit down at a bench while they're walking in, is that something that you can incorporate? Are spaces clean and free of litter? Litter is a huge indication that a place is not necessarily cared for. So, who's responsible for maintenance? What is the maintenance plan? This is definitely a question you can ask of project developers. Does the area feel safe? Is there a security presence, or does there not need to be a security presence because it feels safe in general? Comfort, safety is part of comfort, and if it looks nice. Uses and activities. So, is there a reason to go there? Are people using the space? Is it empty? Are there people there in the morning, the midday, at night, different times of day? Is it used by people of different ages? Might they be comfortable there? Are people attending it alone? Are they in groups? And how many different types of activities are occurring? Is there, can you just walk? Is there a place to eat? Is there shopping? Is there a place to relax or sit and just be quiet? And different choices of things to do. And then again, is the space used throughout the day? So, is this a place that feels just as safe at night as during the day? There's things to do, during the day and at night both. So those are uses and activities. Then we look to sociability. So this is one that's really, not that they're all very important, but sociability is really important in creating community and building community where people can interact with one another. learn about different resources in their communities, run into friends, run into people they haven't seen in a while. Is this a place where you would choose to meet your friends, or are other people meeting here intentionally or just running into them? Are people talking to each other, or do they just kind of pass each other? They don't acknowledge each other there. Do people seem to know each other by face or name? Are they smiling, making eye contact? These are things you're going to start when you go to the grocery store, when you go walk on Broadway in Monticello or something. You're going to start noticing these things. Are there a mix of different ages or ethnic groups that generally reflect the community at large, or um, is it really weighted to one way or another? And why might that be? So, some things to consider when improving public spaces. Now, this is E.B. Crawford Public Library in Monticello. Has to be one of my absolute favorite public spaces in Sullivan County. I think it's just such a fantastic example of place creation. It is the building itself matches the rest of Broadway in a particular way. It's clearly well maintained. It's got character, it's got the books, it's got public art, it has chess to do, chess boards and tables and seats, it has flowers and benches. Just a fantastic example. But again, these things don't happen overnight. And they take time. And so some things to consider are starting small. So with an existing place and also with a development coming in or something, you don't have to have them create, if they have a courtyard next to their business, it doesn't have to look like this in from the get. But if you can start small, you can suggest adding a bench. You can suggest just starting with one corner and improving it. Um, we also suggest involving residents, especially when it comes to public places like a public library, courtyard, getting input or a park, getting input from your community members to see how they want to use it is really important. Um, Really also engaging youth and artists and businesses all together in this process creates a more sustainable and lasting place because then there's a part of it that there's a community ownership in it. And then think about adding color, art, comfort, those amenities, using local materials. And then when it comes to parks and public spaces, like at a library or a municipal park, you can partner with nonprofits like Sullivan 180 for funding or for extra support. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Something I also want to mention is cues for care. When we're talking about placemaking, cues for care go hand in hand. How can we, as citizens and neighbors, help create and care for public spaces? Maintenance is so important. And once you have a public place or a great place, that's when the care kicks in. So this is Lakeside Park in Kanyanga Lake, another great example of a little place. But cues for care in general, and this goes for any Main Street shopping plaza, community center, etc. They're just signs that a place is well maintained and cared for. So thinking about projects and maintenance plan when you're going into it, again, whether you're leading the project or approving the project, maintenance is a huge piece of this. Cues for care make people feel welcome, safe, also motivated to continue to care for a place. If you don't see a spot of litter in sight when you park at ShopRite Plaza, that's a good thing. And if you were to see a piece of litter, you might want to pick it up and throw it in the garbage because it's just one and there's none anywhere else. But if you see piles of litter all around the parking lot, you're not going to pick up one little piece because it's everywhere. They can cues for care also, so they discourage litter. You're not going to want to litter in a place that's perfectly clean, but if there's piles of litter, you might throw something and add to it. Vandalism, graffiti, those things, and potentially crime. So cues for care, and I use this picture because you can see in it there's so many examples that this place is cared for. So cleanliness, no litter, trash cans aren't overflowing. This is another thing if you're looking at site plans for shopping plazas or if you're planning a park, trash cans are important, but even more important is making sure that there's a plan in place to empty them. No one wants to see overflowing trash cans. They can create a, nuisance as far as vermin. They can smell. They just look bad. So that's an important question to consider. Landscaping, and not always just landscaping for landscaping's sake. Obviously, we love flowers and trees and all of those things, but if there's a way to make sure that the trees provide shade where they are needed, there's maybe if there's an area of flooding, you're choosing some plants that are good for flood resilience, that their roots can help with flooding, but also making sure that they're maintained and pruned and watered. So it's great for a developer to come in and say, I'm going to build a new apartment complex and we're going to have big, beautiful arborvitaes across the front of the development. But if there's no plan for maintaining them, then they're just going to get fully eaten by deer and they're just going to look terrible after a year. So those are some questions to think of. Amenities, are there benches, sidewalks we talked about, play areas, depending on what the context is, activation, signage. Signage is a really important piece, and we haven't touched on signage yet, but signage is so important. Whether it's historical markers or like interpretive signage or wayfinding signage. To show people what's there and where they might want to go, if there's something down the street that they might want to see, or just really nice signage for a business that reflects what's inside. It doesn't just have to be a vinyl light up sign on a wall. It can be a really nice installation. Um, and then prompt removal of unwanted graffiti. So that's something more in the public space realm that if you see graffiti, those who are responsible for maintaining the place hopefully remove it quickly to discourage future graffiti. So I just wanted to mention those cues for care because we think about that a lot in the work that we do. So some questions to ask yourself when looking at an existing place. Say you're Frank DeMeo and you want to go stand at Hannafy Park and you have some money from Sullivan Renaissance to make it better or from Sullivan 180 to make it better. And some three questions to start with to ask yourself is one, what do I love about this place? Two, what could be better? And three, what would make me want to spend more time here? So those are just three very broad umbrella questions to ask yourself when you're thinking about an existing place that you have control over. Next, I want to talk about some really specific place-based questions that you can consider when you're a planning or zoning board member and you're reviewing a project. I will be sending these as a handout tomorrow, these questions, so you have it for reference in the future. But also, if you plan to apply for a Sullivan 180 grant for a public project, these are some really important things to consider that you might want to answer beforehand. So, some things to consider when you're looking at whether it's a site plan or any project that you're reviewing. Community fit and character. Does this project strengthen the character of our community or dilute it? Would residents recognize this project as Sullivan County or insert, does this feel like Narrowsburg? Does this feel like Livingston Manor? Or could it be anywhere? That's going back to that big box store or that, chain coffee shop that's going to come in with the same design. Can you ask them to make some tweaks to make it a little bit more appropriate to where it is? So can they add maybe some wood siding versus concrete, etc.? Does this project support the long-term vision in our comprehensive plan? If you are on a planning or zoning board and you have never looked at your municipality's comp plan, I implore you to find it, to request it, and to look at it because this is the guiding document that gives you the teeth and the enforcement to make decisions at the planning and zoning board level. If a project does not support your long-term vision set out in the comp plan, you don't have to support it. But there's ways to really help encourage that it fits in with what your community's vision is, so that you can get it through to fruition and make it happen. When it comes to people first, that placemaking, people focused development, will people feel comfortable walking, gathering, or spending time here? Is the building oriented towards people or to parking? We sometimes you look at a place, and if you're walking on a sidewalk in a municipality and you have to cross a huge parking lot to get to the store, that might not be the most effective. Can you maybe adjust it so that the new building or plaza is more street oriented and there's parking in the rear? So start thinking about those things. Are entrances, sidewalks, lighting, and landscaping designed for human use and not just vehicles? So are you designing with the person in mind, not just the car? Does this project, when we talk about connectivity, does this project connect safely and logically to what's around it? Are there crosswalks where there need to be crosswalks? Is there a Move Sullivan bus stop that exists there that you want to make sure you have a connection to, etc.? Where appropriate, could someone arrive here without a car? Could someone walk here from their neighborhood if you have a walkable, more condensed hamlet or Main Street community? And are there safe and intuitive paths for pedestrians from parking to the front door? When you look at a parking lot, does it have kind of clear and defined ways that someone might get from their car to the door? And if not, if it's just kind of a big open square, how can we break it up to guide people in a natural or sensible, safe flow? Uh, when you talk about function and longevity of a project, will this still look good and function well 10 years from now? I love this question because, you can have a project that looks great on paper and it comes before you and you're like, this is fantastic, let's do it. But think about the future of not just the now, but is this still going to be appropriate for my community in 10 years? Is the site designed for flexibility as needs change? Are there ways to adjust it as things change? Is maintenance realistic, or are we approving future headaches? Like I said, maintenance, I can't emphasize it enough. Maintenance is so important when it comes to projects. Um, does the proposal contribute to the local economy or commercial vitality? Really important question. Is this going to be something that your residents and local community can use and contribute to? Is it creating a place where businesses can thrive and not just exist? Is it going to create a place where people want to go stop in and they get their coffee and then they walk to this store and then they go to this store and then they go to this park and then they go to the library? Like, what are those connections between places that create almost a destination where everybody is working together and can benefit from increased foot traffic? Will it increase the value of adjacent properties? Does the project work with natural features, not fight them? If you're building on a stream or a river, how does the project work with that topography versus against it? If it's a flood-prone property, do they incorporate flood-resistant plantings or trees that will have large roots that will help mitigate flooding, things like that? Are stormwater and drainage handled in ways that benefit and not harm the community? Is there thoughtful stormwater prevention planning efforts here, et cetera? And are the green elements in the project, such as trees or shrubs, et cetera, it's great when they're ornamental, but is there a purpose as well? Are they, screening from a next door property that you might want privacy from? Are they creating a space where you pull your car up to it and then you have this natural walkway to the entrance of a store? Are they providing shade, etc.? And then lastly, the last couple categories, does the design reduce conflicts between cars, pedestrians, and cyclists? This is really important. I know that at Sullivan County Planning, they've been working on the bike and pedestrian master plan for Sullivan County. We have an incredible, as far as New York State traffic data goes, we have an incredibly high rate of traffic related deaths as well as pedestrian related deaths when it comes to traffic. So really how does this design mitigate that or reduce that conflict? Again, crosswalks, sidewalks, bike lanes, etc. Can emergency vehicles and school buses safely access this property if applicable? Um, and moving on to usability, does it feel inviting and safe at all hours? Again, we talked about that when evaluating a place. What's the lighting like? What's the, are there people there so that you feel like there's other people looking out for you if it's after dark, maybe? Would you feel comfortable sending a child or an older relative here? And does it contribute to a sense of place or just fill a space? And these are not questions that, these are things that it's going to vary with every project, every community, and every person too. You might feel very differently about per project, but these are questions, these are tools to start thinking about projects and start articulating, you know what? I wouldn't feel comfortable sending my older relative here because where the handicap parking is just really doesn't make sense, and I don't know how they're going to cross this part of it to get into the store safely. Things like that. Start thinking about those things. When it comes to process too, I did just also want to mention this. So, is the applicant showing you that they understand and respect your local vision and code? Have they done their research? Do they know what Thompson wants or what Fallsburg wants or, Rockland, etc.? Um, are we as a board applying standards fairly and consistently across all applicants? So whenever housing, an apartment building comes in, are we giving them all the same advice to have a play area for children and have sidewalks and, all of those things? So are we applying those standards fairly across the board? And do we have enough information to make a confident decision? You don't have to approve things just to get them through. You can request more information. You can request resubmissions or redesigns to make it fit in more appropriately with your community and the goals of your comprehensive plan. That is perfectly reasonable and a normal part of the process. So again, I'll be providing you with a handout with these questions if you choose to use it when you're reviewing projects. It doesn't necessarily apply to every project, but if there's a large new project, again, like a community center, a shopping plaza, etc., something big on your main street in your community, these are really good questions to start asking, to start thinking about how we can improve it, how we can make it better, and how we can fit it in and make it feel Fallsburg or feel Monticello or feel Liberty, etc. So, as we near the end of our time together, I do just want to reiterate the support and resources that we have at Sullivan 180. So, for municipalities, we do have grant programs, including the annual municipal partnership grants, community impact grants. These are for parks and public spaces primarily and community and recreational facilities. But we also have community development grants, which are smaller and they can provide technical assistance or implementation funding. So if you would like to develop design guidelines or develop, some sort of a vision for your main street and what you want to see new projects look like, that's a way that we could assist. We also have, and I had pointed out that Carmela was on the call, but we have beautification grants. And although those are, as with all of these, they're not for private developers or businesses, they are a resource for the municipality, for public spaces. I know the town of Thompson has used our funding, both beautification and municipal, to improve in front of town hall at Thompson Square Plaza and welcome signs in commercial corridors, etc. But we can also, beyond the funding piece of things, we can also help with brainstorming and community visioning. If you have, your main street or you want to create a new park or create a new public space, we can also help between Carmela and I and other team members. We can bring activities and tools to really do a targeted workshop in your community to get input and see what youth want, what older people want, what your residents want, to really help guide that plan. So that's just something that we can provide as a technical assistance aspect. And then also volunteer recruitment. We have a whole volunteer and community engagement department that can help get that community input and get that community active in your project as well. So thank you for being here tonight. Hopefully you have some new questions or tools or ways to articulate how you're thinking about site plan review or creating new places. I thank you for your commitment to the community. Like I said before, being on a planning or zoning board or being an elected official or working for a municipality is hard work and it's often thankless. So we appreciate how much time you guys give to your communities and the thought that you give to these projects and to the public realm in your community. We are on social media. We have our contact information there. And if you'd like to email Carmela or myself or any of our team members, all of our emails are on our website, on our team page. Uh, I would open it up to questions if anyone has a specific question. But if you don't, we're also available after. You can email us. We're always happy to chat on a specific community project or community area. So just let us know. We're here for you. Are there any questions? If not, I will be sending along emails tomorrow of both the resources and then also proof of credit for your planning or zoning board clerk if you need it. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful evening. If you have other board members that you would like to see that weren't able to make it tonight that you'd like to have see this presentation, we will be uploading it to our YouTube and I'll send along that link tomorrow as well. So thank you so much for being here and I hope everyone has a great night.